Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gail Estella's Survival Podcast. It's been a while since I've been here. I think it's maybe been about 2 months. A lot of things have changed since I've been here. I have a new last name. I am now Gail Estella Fair. Yes. So I would like to say hello. And again, my name is Gail Estella. I've gone from being a victim to a victor, now an advocate against domestic violence. And this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And our topic for today is the many faces of domestic violence or domestic abuse, or domestic abuse. And my guest with me today, I'm going to start first with my sister. Finally, she's on the stage or the platform with me, Deborah Wright, and I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Deborah Wright, and as she claims, I'm her sister, and it's just a blessing to be here and to see you. You say survival. I want to add to it that you're thriving as well.
Yes, thank you.
And I praise the Lord for what he's done in your life, and I've just seen how he's brought you to this place. So
thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
So, as she said, my name is Deborah Wright. I'm a professional counselor in Charlotte, North Carolina. And in Charlotte, North Carolina, I see adults. I mainly focus on relationship issues, dealing with infidelity, divorce, premarital therapy, counseling for couples. And I also enjoy working with clients to help them overcome the impact of domestic abuse as well as early childhood trauma and neglect. So those are my focuses. And of course I do the run-of-the-mill anxiety and depression. But this is special to me because I know someone personally who has gone through this and who is now thriving.
Would that be me?
That's you.
Well, thank you. And tell us the name of your practice.
Okay, the name of my practice is The Virtue Place. And real quickly, I'll tell you how I came up with this name. I wanted to name it to honor my niece, Asia. And Gail and I kept going back with this, and I thought virtuous woman because she was such a virtuous woman. And I came up with The Virtue Place with the assistance of Gail. So that's the name of the practice, The Virtue Place.
The Virtue Place.
Yeah.
And Dr. McElwain, Dr. Teresa McElwain, will you please tell us a little bit about you?
It is good to be with you here again this year.
Yes.
We were together last year
Yes.
with this topic, and we can never talk about it enough, right? I'm glad to be Reverend Dr. Teresa McElwain. I'm an ordained minister. Work in ministry with my husband, who's Bishop Michael C. McElwain. We are supporting Bishop Marion Wilson here in Rock Hill at Temple of Praise Kingdom Seeking after my husband retired after pastoring 36 years. So we feel like we're little sheep wandering, trying to find our next place. But we always enjoy trusting God, and he led us to Temple of Praise to be supportive to that. So from the ministerial standpoint, that's where I work and support in that local congregation. And for my professional, I am a nationally board certified chaplain and work in the Atrian Health System. And from there, after working with a lot of patients and families coming through the hospital from about 1993 to 2010, I just felt the call to get into the community, to start helping the families who experience trauma and a lot of stress and depression because of experiencing medical problems with their loved ones. So I just said, wow, who's out there mainly for our people to provide mental health services at a cost-effective rate? That's the biggest
very
challenge.
important.
Yes.
Many of them want it, but they, struggle with being able to have the monies. So I went on to become what's called a North Carolina fee-based practice in pastoral counselors. North Carolina is one of the 7 states that you can get state licensed / certified as a pastoral counselor. And because many ministers use the word counselor, we prefer to use professionally the word pastoral psychotherapist to put us in the realm of profession. So we have,
And it sounds better.
it does.
It's like, oh, wow.
And what we do, we integrate spirituality into our psychotherapeutic treatment interventions.
Oh,
Meaning that we can allow whatever faith background you have to be free to come in and talk about it and see how that is impacting your life and making a difference in how you're feeling and the choices you're making. So June of 2011, 12, I was blessed to pass my board, praise the Lord. And so now we're looking at 12 years later, I've been practicing, and also I'm an adjunct professor for Charlotte Christian College and Theological Seminary, where I teach the Masters of Divinity students who are concentrating in chaplaincy as well as pastoral counseling, in addition to continuing with my practice, which is called Inner Healing Pastoral Counseling Service.
Inner Healing Pastoral Service.
Pastoral counseling
service. You're doing a lot. That's good.
Yes.
That's good.
But the good thing, they all
integrate.
Yeah.
They go together. And we're going to come back to the cultural part because that's very important when we talk about domestic abuse. And that's one area that we don't speak a lot about.
Not very much at all.
Yes, we're going to talk about that. So we're going to get started, ladies. As I said before, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this is also Breast Cancer Survivors Month as well, Awareness Month. And we know that we're going to see a lot of pink. We're going to see pink, pink, pink all throughout the month of October. And I have people that I'm dear to that are battling cancer, breast cancer, have passed from it. And you as well, Dr. McElwain.
Yes,
so blessings to you as well.
Thank you.
And we know that Breast Cancer Awareness Month is going to get all the recognition
most of the attention,
that
right?
it deserves, and it does deserve it. But what about Domestic Violence Awareness Month, where at least 4,000 women per year are killed by domestic abuse, and that's a large number of women being killed. 1 in 3 women will experience domestic abuse, and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic abuse. And those are big numbers.
Yes, they are.
So let's start off by defining what is domestic abuse.
Okay. I would define domestic abuse as a pattern of behavior that seeks to gain control and power over someone. And I put pattern there because it's really important. I have clients come in and they may say, well, he hit me one time. And so by saying that, they don't think that they're dealing with domestic abuse. But then I start thinking about some of the other things they have told me about the husband that are controlling. And that's a pattern there. So helping them to make that connection when it's ready. And when we think about domestic abuse, there are different forms, there are different phases, faces of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
You know, you have the physical, where you have people hitting and kicking and some biting. And the strangulation, that's something that I just want to point out that is so serious that we're not talking about enough, because that strangulation says that I'm ready to kill you. And what it does to the person's brain is permits the oxygen from going to the brain. So you can have someone who suffers from memory loss, and it can cause death.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think it's important for us to make sure that we're talking about some of the impacts of this. So then you have the psychological.
Okay, we're going to get to all of those.
Okay.
We're going to get to all of those. Dr. McElwain, is there anything else that you would like to add as far as defining domestic abuse?
I think a key component in dealing with domestic abuse is one person in the relationship is misusing their power. They believe they're in a position of power and they misuse it in order to coerce the other partners to do what he or she wants done.
So when you say control,
It's a power struggle.
power struggle.
And
It's all
misuse of
about
that power.
So today, we're going to talk about that. Some sites list up to 14 forms of domestic abuse. But we're going to talk about the emotional and the psychological. We're going to talk about the physical, which in my mind is usually the last form that one may experience, because there's so many more that comes before that. And when you talk about the pattern, a lot of people do feel that if there's no physical abuse, then there's no domestic abuse.
Right.
Exactly.
But there's so many other forms of it as well. And then we're going to talk about sexual. So let's start with the emotional and the psychological.
Okay.
Psycho mind, right? And like we say in our community, you messing with my mind. You playing with me. You're making me think I am less than who I really am.
Yes.
And oftentimes the person who have that want that sense of power, whoever the partner is, we're going to say typically, because we look typically as a man, as abuser. He will search out that woman that will be timid, quiet, very reserved, so that he can use his power over her. And if it's a sexual encounter, then he insists on, you should be able to meet my sexual needs when and how and where I want. And when she comes to the point of saying, wait a minute, this is too much. What? You think you're going to say no to me?
Let's stay on emotional and psychological.
And
We're gonna get to
that's the psychological
Yeah,
saying
okay.
to her, you have no control.
control. Okay, so because
That's
we're
the
going to talk about the
psychological.
sexual.
Right,
But when
because
you
that
said-
moves into that.
it.
Yes.
So when you said timid, reserved, because I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. So what do these men see? Just say the three of us are sitting in a space together.
Yes.
What is it that they're going to see in me that know that it may be okay to start the phase of abuse with me, then they might not see in one of you?
That's a good question.
Isn't that a good question?
Yeah, and I can tell you this. I did an internship with the Shelter for Domestic Violence, and I asked ladies this almost the same question, and they were like, let me tell you. And one of them, Gail, I believe, is when they are communicating to you, they're being intentional about noticing how you're responding to
That's
them.
it.
Yeah, you
Yes.
gravitate.
If you
And
don't
you're
look
like,
at them, you're
"Oh,
looking down.
tell me more about
yes,
yourself. You
and you
mean that
feel
really?"
flattered
Yeah.
that they pay attention to you.
And you're lifting them up.
Yes.
You're lifting them up
Yes.
because that's what they need. Because a lot of them are suffering from a low self-esteem. So if they can find someone to build them up, that's something that they look for. And you want to be careful not to start telling them your history. Because if you have a history
That's it.
of abuse,
Oh, they use that.
they're going to use that too.
That's good. So you said self-esteem, because usually when we think about the victim, we think about the victim being the person that suffers from the low self-esteem. So you're saying as well, the abuser or the batterer,
Absolutely.
they suffer from low self-esteem as well.
Yeah, because in order to make themselves feel good, a lot of times they need to put other people down. And if they're not feeling good about themselves, they feel like they're out in control. So that's one way to gain some of that confidence, if I can control another person.
Okay, that's good. So Dr. McElwain, the physical part. Okay, you said something about not telling too much too soon.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if there a time space, both of you are therapists and you counsel women and men, I assume. what time frame is there that you would say I can be open with this person and tell them about my past?
It depends on the person.
That's it.
Yeah, and
It's no cookie cutter situation.
there's no cookie cutter
Okay.
situation.
You have to determine each person and their conversation, their approach, and you see a little bit of their motive of why you want to know so much so soon type
Right.
of thing.
Yeah.
So again, you have to what we call active listening.
And you have to listen for safety.
That's it.
Is this person safe physically and psychological? And you will know that after a few sessions.
That's it. But we often find the person being abused moves so quickly into the romantic part and get their emotions entangled that they no longer have that clear, rational thinking anymore.
Yeah.
I like to say the higher your emotion, the less your thinking ability. Because you're following those feelings. And what do we say? Those feelings will fail us every time.
Yeah. Your brain that controls your thinking is hijacked.
That's it. Yeah.
And that reminds me of being a teenager. You know, because when you think about as a teenager, that first or second love, you didn't think with anything but your physical body and your heart. You didn't care anything about what your brain was telling you. You know, nothing, what's the word, intellectual
Right.
Yes.
would have any prevalence on what it was that you were feeling at that time.
And
then,
to be fair, Gail, just real quickly, we have to give teenagers and younger people some grace because that part of the brain
is not fully matured yet, or fully developed yet. Okay, that's really good. So let's talk about, we're going to do physical last. Let's
Okay.
talk about sexual, because you were talking about the sexual, how it all integrates in.
And can I just say something real quickly? I don't mean to
Go ahead.
disrupt you. I think we need to talk about gaslighting just real quickly.
The emotional part.
The
Okay.
emotional and psychological part.
Okay, go
Because
ahead.
That's what you see, the gaslighting.
Yes,
And
yes.
before you know it, you are thinking you're crazy, that you don't know reality. And once someone gets you there, they know that they have control. For instance, Gail, I thought you were going to go to the store and pick something up for me. And you say, well, no, you said that you were going to. And he's going to convince you that your reality is totally wrong. And if you're not careful, you'll start thinking, well, maybe he is right.
That's true. And it's so ironic that you said the gaslighting part of it, because I interviewed a person, and she said that she had just been abused, that her husband had beat her, pinned her down, had beat her, and he called her out of her name. And once they finished, she said something about him calling her out of her name and hitting her. And he said, what are you talking about? I didn't hit you. I didn't abuse you. I didn't call you out of your name. And she said for a moment, she had to think, well, did he really? So that's a lot of power.
That's a
That's
lot
what
of
I'm
power.
saying. It's all
And those
about
are the
that
same
power.
tactics people use with people in war and concentration camps to just start breaking them down.
Yes.
And you hear the term a lot more. And I guess nothing's new under the sun. It has happened, because I know it has happened to me before. But I just know I didn't know the technical name or term
Yeah.
for it. Okay. Anything else you want to add on the emotional, psychological?
There's a lot,
part?
but we don't have time.
Okay.
So keep going.
We said we'll put a comment.
We'll put a comma there.
We'll go back.
Maybe next
We'll
year
go
we'll
back. We'll go back. Okay, Dr. McElwain, let's talk about the sexual abuse as you were speaking of earlier.
Well, again, what I said earlier, oftentimes the partner moves so quickly in the relationship because they are so excited this person is paying attention to me. And they are buying me things and they're taking me places. And then what that male, we're going to quote unquote male, will say, okay, now that I've done all that for you.
What are you going to do for me?
Don't we see that in high school days?
Yes. As an adults as well.
Adults
But
as
starting
well.
with that high school 15, 16-year-old girl, oh, he bought me a necklace. Oh, he paid my phone bill.
And let me interrupt you. I just took a training on LOS, is Love Speaks Out, and it's teaching teenagers about healthy and unhealthy relationships.
Okay.
And what they're doing now is they may Uber you some food.
Woo!
You may be at home and they just Uber you some food, or they may just send something to your home.
Yes.
Nothing that you've asked for. They just send it to you, and you think it's flattering.
Of course you
And no
do.
one has to say anything anymore. They don't have to be in your physical presence anymore. They can just DoorDash you something, Uber you something, send you a gift through the mail.
Oh, another thing, let's talk about the social media piece. With the Facebook and Twitter, they may send you all your friends. Oh, she's the one. She's special. Now it's not just your local area. It's all the Facebook knows how much he cares about me.
Hearts.
So now we got that bigger platform that is used to lure you in. So when I see you and I finally get with you, then see, I built you up to all of this.
All
And
the
now-
comments. Oh, he really likes
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And it's almost like I owe him something.
Yes.
Let me just share my body with him.
Yeah.
That's the least I can do.
you. And once you've shared your body,
It's hard to go back across that bridge when you've crossed it. It really is.
so let's talk about the coercion, the different sex acts.
Yeah, that happens too. Forcing a woman or man, but typically it's a woman, to have sex when you don't want to have sex. And also, I've been reading where some women are actually involved in sex trafficking.
For someone.
For someone, yeah. And biblically speaking, if we go into Christianity, let me say Christianity, a lot of Christian men can use the Bible as an excuse to say, this is your obligation. I don't care how sick you are. I don't care what's going on with you, but you owe me this.
And that's what we're going to be talking about, the religion abuse.
That's it.
And then forcing you to have or to perform different acts that you don't feel comfortable with.
Exactly, yeah.
Or threesomes.
Any form of sexual act that it's just, it goes against your values, you don't feel comfortable with, but in order to please him, or not shouldn't say please him, in order to not be so afraid of the repercussions,
That may happen.
you do
It's
it.
more out of fear.
It's out of fear.
Yeah.
So we see this a lot in teenagers. But what about the married couples? Where if you're married, I guess we'll go with the religion aspect as well, but when you're married, you don't have a right to say no.
That's
That
right.
you belong to me. You should do whatever it is that I ask of you to do or want you to do.
See it all of the time.
You see a lot of that in your practice.
I see that in my practice, and after the woman has been called names,
Yeah.
after she has been put down, after she has been gaslit, and then the person just shifts, the perpetrator, and they're ready to have sex. And I've heard women say they just lie there and just let it happen.
Yes, that's
Because
it.
they believe sometimes too that is their obligation.
And fear that they will be abused worse
Yes.
if they don't
if
comply.
they don't.
And fear that God won't be pleased with.
That's true.
Okay, so that's a good gateway. God won't be pleased with them. Minister McElwain, let's talk about religion abuse.
It's happening in so many different ways. We heard about the last 10 years or so about the big scandal in the Catholic Church. That was religion abuse, right? The priests with these altar boards. These moms were so happy that their sons were selected to be altar boys. And what were they doing? Violating those boys. Making them think you are honoring God when you allow me to do that. misusing the very word of God that's supposed to be freeing and liberating and empowering and build up to oppress and put back into bondage.
We're back into
So
bondage.
yes, and we often see, which is, God, this is the thing that is so hard to even talk about, the ministers' wives, the pastors' wives. They are suffering in silence.
Yes.
They
Sad.
come, they dress them up like beautiful little dolls.
And they sit on the front row
Yes.
with their lap cloth around them, and their nice hats on.
And they just cringing.
Yes, on the inside.
And who can I tell?
And my baby, let me talk my baby. Everyone get my
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
Hey, baby, I love you. You look so good today. That's what she look good today.
That's when my alarm starts going off. Really, like something's not right with it.
And I have been a pastor's wife since I was 27 years old, and we were a young family, and 3 girls, and my baby was just 2 months old, and they expected me to be in the kitchen and cooking with the other women because you're the pastor's wife. I got a 2-month-old baby, a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old. But that the religious abuse is making me feel bad because I'm not doing what the other pastor's wife is expected to do. And then later on, I get my own call in ministry and want to go to seminary, and they make my husband feel bad because he's supporting me. So see, even the spouses who support their wives will be abused by the ecclesiastical system.
So you gonna let her have as much power as you have?
To the point we had to end up leaving that denomination because we knew if we stayed in there, our marriage would not survive.
So,
Sad.
in religion abuse, most of the time it's the emotional, the verbal,
And
the
the psychological.
financial.
Yes,
Yes.
the financial.
The financial,
The sexual.
the
Yeah.
sexual.
Because I had a client tell me that her husband said, I'm not going to hit you because then somebody will know I'm abusing you.
Yes,
But I'm going to
I'll
make
tear
your
you
life so
down.
miserable below your neck until you won't be able to live.
And I like to say the part when you can't put the Band-Aid on it.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You can't rub it with a little bit of alcohol or Neosporin. You can't
Exactly.
cover it up. You know it's here.
It's
It
here.
doesn't go away.
And it's long lasting. It's more long lasting than
Than the
physical
physical.
abuse.
And a term oftentimes used is ecclesiastical abuse because it's within your denomination that system is so firm and rigid that you can't move outside of it to do that which is best for you. Just like my husband and I were as a young family. We needed something different. But no, you're going to fit this mold like everybody else. And then members in the congregation trying to do different things, and then they be put down because they are not fitting the mold of what is expected of them.
Or not necessarily put down, not elevated.
Not elevated, that's
It can go
true.
both
That's
ways.
right. Yeah.
Not elevated. Even the pastors.
That's right.
If they don't go along with the norm, they're not elevated.
That's what happened to us. Yeah.
They're not being elevated. And we talked about the Catholic and not trying to stay on one religion.
Right.
But what about the priests and the nuns and the abortions? So it's
The
that
secrecy.
the secrecy.
The secrets. I'm living this image that expected of me, but I'm actually trying to find a way to satisfy this sexual desire that God placed inside of us to be fulfilled in a healthy way, the way He set it up, not to try to suppress it. So I can't suppress it, so what do? I found another route, but I keep it secret.
Okay, so when we say religion abuse, let's talk about homosexuality.
Okay.
Because we have, and this is not any means of anyone bashing
No.
any type of minister, religious leader, or anything like that. But we have some leaders that bash homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And they're living the homosexuality,
The
or
down low, as they say.
Yeah, they're living a homosexual lifestyle. Or I know people personally that have been abused by pastors in the
Yes.
church. You know, that are grown men that struggle to this day
Yes.
because of being on the choir leader, or deacon so and so would bring us home.
Exactly. We didn't have a father, so he became a father figure for us.
Yeah. Again, I believe it still couches all around that power. I'm going to use my power of presenting myself as a spiritual father to abuse these little boys and to hurt them and wound them for life. Like you said, it's grown men. They still scarred by that.
And then a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the kid or the victim tells, no one believes it or nothing's done about it.
I'm glad you said that, and I want to circle back with something, but to add to that, when we started talking about pastors or men who are harming children, we want to go beyond domestic abuse, because that becomes like pedophilia.
Yeah, that's a crime. Yeah, that's a mental illness.
Yes, for sure.
And both are happening. But going back to no one helping someone, I've heard women say that they've gone to the pastor, gone to the ladies in the church, and what the ladies will say, or the pastor, honey, you just need to cook a little more, or, just don't upset him so much, because he's a good man.
He's a
Good man.
He's a
good
God-fearing man.
You got that nice Mercedes. You got those Gucci shoes on.
You don't
And
know
he
how
takes care
blessed
of
you are.
Exactly. Maybe put on a little more lipstick.
Red. Oh, don't put on red. Don't put you attractive.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
And then the other one, no one believes them.
That's it.
That's sad.
Because they built such an image up.
Or is it no one believes them, or that they're going through the same thing themselves,
There you go. Could
and
possibly
they can't
be.
speak on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they just, they don't want to believe it. So then the lady is abused again when she
Yes,
goes to
over
the
and over.
church.
Because someone she told her husband, and her husband told the pastor, or the deacon, or the trustee.
Yeah. And they make the woman think that she's crazy, just like the batterers think.
That's
Oh,
right,
no,
no.
he's not like that.
And you see the studies say those people in those high-profile positions are some of the worst batterers. Lawyers, pastors, doctors,
CEOs.
CEO of companies, because they build those images so much.
And they're all about that power
They're all about that
and control.
And then if the stock market is down today, or
Oh,
the
yes.
company isn't doing well, they can't take it out on anyone at work. They go out. Okay, so let's transition into cultural abuse, because you said something about that. That's one of the things that you concentrate on in your practice, and that you treat different cultures. So what about cultural abuse? Because some cultures, it's okay and accepted.
You think about the Hispanic culture. It's a very male-dominated culture. And the man sets the tone for what happens in the house. And the woman turns to the husband, let the husband speak. So again, it keeps underlining that power. Who's in that position, in that male? And the woman has to just follow. And if she dare get off that path, I'm going to show you, I got to get you back in line. So it's a lot of these more male-dominated cultures, and in our African-American, we see a lot of that in our homes too.
And we just got back from Dubai on our honeymoon, and one of the most magnificent things that I witnessed were a group of men at a certain time. They stood in unison. They took their shoes off, lined their shoes up nice and straight. They stood, they kneeled, and they prayed. And everyone watched them, because it was marvelous to see. They pray 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And I made the comment, and again, this is not against any type of religion.
Right.
We serve a God that we can pray anytime. It doesn't have to be 5 times a day. It doesn't have to be in a certain position. It doesn't have to be a certain way. We can pray any time that we choose to pray.
Right.
But if you're this structured to honor God this way, but then you go home. And I remember being at a training, and this lady, she's of the Muslim faith, and she owns a transition home.
Okay.
And she was just saying that there are not a lot of Muslim women come through. And my question was, so does this mean that it's not happening? And she said, oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
It's happening. So you portray again in the Baptist church or the AME, this man of God. So I guess what I'm saying, it's not about who you portray yourself to be, it's who you really are.
I agree. And we have to remember that these men, the perpetrators, they have this sense of entitlement that they are, it's okay for them to be their wives. It's almost like, this is property for me. And this is a learned behavior also. I've seen my dad do it. I've seen my granddad do it. So it's really no big thing. It's all about making sure that this woman's going to listen to what I say. So there's this sense of entitlement. There's this sense of property that
property.
The person is a property. And that can be very cultural driven too. Yeah. So I like to say, you were given the example about men praying and being structured like that. Well, even if they truly believe that what they're doing is honorable and their religion,
And I do believe they do.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with them thinking that they're not entitled to go and hit their women.
There's a separation in that.
That's a separation. Good.
Separation.
Let's disclaim that. That's a disclaimer. Yes. Disclaimer on my part.
When Deborah was talking about they're entitled to be the wife and, the pattern of one generation, it just brought to my mind the movie of The Color Purple. That pivotal scene is when Sophia comes to Miss Silly and said, you told Harpo to beat me. But why did she tell her?
Because that's what she knew.
Oh, she knew. Mama, I can't make her mind me. She won't listen. Beat her. And then what did Sophia say? You're not going to beat me because what? My daddy beat me? My brothers beat me. I've been beat all of my, and I'll be dog if you're not gonna beat me, my husband.
You got that, don't you?
I do, because that was so profound.
It was.
And
So
some people may have missed when she said, "My daddy beat me, my brothers beat me."
Every man around her.
Every man around, and I married trying to get away from that. And here I'm coming right back into it.
So she's breaking that generational.
She's determined to break it.
So let's go into the physical part. And I'll go physical part. But with Harpo and Sophia, who did Harpo circle back around to? Or who did he circle back around to in the end?
Sophia.
I don't know, because
he loved her. He really loved her. He was with the other wife for a while. The lady, I don't know if they ever got married, but then he ended up coming
back. And so
back
we hold on to that.
Yes.
And that's going to be a question.
Okay.
Can the abuse end? Or can it be, does the perpetrator, can the perpetrator stop? So we're going to go back to that one because we saw it happen there. So let's talk about the physical abuse, and we're going to move on.
Okay, so physical, this is what we hear more about. And this is obvious because you can see the bruises, you can see the lips being burst. But you have burning. And I was thinking about the burning when on the news a few weeks ago, the Olympian from Uganda was set on fire.
Set on
Oh, I
fire.
heard about that.
Yeah.
That
It
was
sure
so
was.
By her
heartbreaking.
boyfriend. And by that point, you have to think it had escalated
God.
so much
Had to.
that he felt that he had to do something like that. So you get the burn and you get the kicking, and we talked about the strangulation, and of course the hitting,
The spitting.
the spitting, the pushing. And sometimes women will say, "Oh, he just pushed me a little bit."
Or grab
Oh,
your arm.
Grab your arm. And I like how you said earlier that a lot of times it escalates to that. If I can't control them verbally and psychologically, I need to up the ante some more. I need to start hitting now.
And when you said strangulation, when a man strangles a woman, if she blacks out, and I know this is for the state of North Carolina,
Okay.
it can be, he can be charged with a felony
Oh, okay.
with her blacking out. Now, if she's been strangled and then black out, but I guess because of the fact that it's a near-death thing, but a lot of men strangle or choke because there's no evidence. You can't see the marks.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't see the marks.
Especially if they're wearing a turtleneck.
And you know how to cover it.
You know how to
it
cover it up.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And another thought that came to me about physical abuse is being held hostage. Oftentimes we don't think about that. Okay, you're going to go out of here, you better be back in 30 minutes. Oh, you stayed 10 minutes? Over
No,
what
you stayed
said?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, didn't make it a 10. Two. So what? I'm going to show you, I'm going to lock you in this room, and you're not going to come out until I come out. And so many have been held prisoners.
In their own homes.
In their own home.
And I know for me, my abuser, this was when the time we had the landline phones. And he would take the cord
Oh my God.
out of the phone and just wrap the cord around his neck. Because his thing was the phone was to make calls going out, not to receive calls, So here's the handle.
Yes.
Here's the base, but there's no cord.
Yeah.
And this was before cell phones.
Right.
So there's no outlet.
And that reminds me, my own younger sister was in a relationship that the young man didn't want her to go to work. He would take the battery out of the car to keep her from going
Mine
to
was
work.
the fuses.
And so her manager, who had taken her under the wings, saw the change and came to her, something is going on. What? She was so scared to confide in her. Because she said, you never miss work. You never was late. Over the last couple of months, what changed? Because you're now missing work, you're late, and you're not focused when you're here.
That's good. So let's move on. This question has been proposed to me, and I've asked you this question. Is domestic abuse a disease?
I think that circles back to what I was saying earlier, that I don't believe it's a disease. I don't see any research that says a disease.
I
It's
don't
a
either.
decision. It's a decision that someone makes to gain power and control.
Okay.
Now, could that person have a mental illness? Yeah, but everyone who has a mental illness doesn't try to exert that
Abuse,
power
yeah.
and control. Anger, yes, anger could be a factor. Drinking, that could be a factor too. But it still gets down to, I have a right to hit this person.
And they feel they have the right. Okay, so with the person having the right to hit, because I know you made the statement who we're talking about a lot of times when the police come, they may stop. But we also see a lot of policemen being killed answering domestic abuse calls as well.
That
So
can
you
happen,
still
too.
feel that exerting power Or is it that they're in a frame of mind that they really just don't care who it is at that point in time?
I think at that point in time,
Yes.
they don't
Anything
care.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if
By
it means
that,
that it's going to be between me and my wife and you're stepping in, we'll all go out.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's still about that power and control.
Sure.
Because think about this. I like to give this example. Let's just say you're dating someone and he's just name calling and spitting and gaslighting and yelling, and then all of a sudden his mom comes in the door. A lot of times what you'll see is a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That person will stop. So that lets you know that most of the time they have control over it.
That's right.
So let's move forward and talk about the trauma, because I used the word PTSD and you told me that's not necessarily the correct word. So let's talk about the traumas from domestic abuse, because when I say the many faces, so let's talk about the different faces that can come from being in a domestic abusive relationship and the trauma that goes along with those faces.
Sure. Well, I may have misled you, because some women do go on to get PTSD after being abused.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of them experience traumatic type symptoms that may not morph into a full-blown disorder. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. Okay. So what would be the difference for the audience? What would be the difference between trauma and PTSD? Because PTSD is such a prevalent word now. So what would be the difference between trauma and PTSD?
So,
Well,
go ahead.
PTSD is just an acronym for post-traumatic stress disorder. So there's no difference. The post-traumatic, this is what's happened to you after that traumatic experience has happened. The beating is long gone.
But
Your mind
the
is still
residual effects.
remembering it. You think about the pain every time you relive that. You got the flashback. You got the nightmares. You got the sweats, and you got the anxiety. All of that comes because the traumatic experience itself is gone. And this is the after effect. So that is one and the same. It's the trauma plus the post afterwards happen. Past the experience is long gone, but you're carrying all of that inside of you. And along with that, if it's okay, I found this article in the Christian Journal Today, which I think is against Christian Counseling Today, which is a journal from the American Association of Christian Counseling, and it's talking about shattered innocence, attachment, childhood sexual abuse, and trauma care. You see, all of that begins a lot of times with what's happening in that person's childhood. Look at what it says. I want to just share a little bit of what it says. It says how the adults in our early lives treat us forms the blueprint of the attachment beliefs we develop and our sense of whether we are worthy of love and others can be counted on for love and support. Childhood trauma, such as childhood sexual abuse, is a disorganizing experience, meaning, oh my God, this is not supposed to be happening. My mom, my dad, this aunt, this uncle is supposed to be loving me, protecting me, and now they're coming and violating me? How do I handle this mentally? It's so much. And said when this abuse happens at the hands of a parent, step parent, or other caregivers, the shattered innocence is far-reaching, represents an attachment failure, and is often associated with a disorganized or unresolved attachment style. So the best type of attachment a person can have is called secure attachment. They've been loved, they've been nurtured, they've been provided the emotional bonding that they need, so they're secure. So mama need for 2 hours.
Yes.
Mama's coming back.
I remember seeing that.
I'm secure. But if mama dropped me off with this boyfriend this week, and I go to grandma next week, and I'm with you next week, they are disorganized because it's nothing consistent, and maybe that uncle may touch me in a way instead of protecting me. So all of this can be based on what's happening in that child's sense of attachment because of the trauma that happened at their age. It is an excellent article.
That's good.
Can I add to something that Dr. McElwain said about trauma and PTSD? So I think we need to define trauma. Trauma is a psychological, emotional response to a really disturbing event.
That's right.
And it's so disturbing, you feel like you can't cope. So that's trauma, and that can lead to various symptoms. When it becomes PTSD, it becomes a disorder where you are having these cluster experiences, like you said, the nightmare, the flashbacks. You avoid. Someone who may just experience trauma may not start avoiding the place that the person. And then you have arousal. That's another criteria, that they're easily aroused.
That's right.
If they see someone that looks like the abuser, they can start going into
cross
that.
over to the other side of the street.
Yes.
And I'm gonna drive in the other direction.
Yeah. And
To avoid.
you can start having these negative thoughts about yourself, about the world, and experiencing depression too. So PTSD is more of a disorder where it definitely impacts your functioning. It's like you don't function well, whereas trauma symptoms, you may function better. So that's the difference there. And women who have been battered, a lot of times they do have PTSD.
Oh, yeah, because it's happened so much.
Yeah, and then think about if it's going on and on. Then that morphed into another form of PTSD, the complex
But
side
I was
trauma.
going to say, when you start from that childhood and keep on going up to the
This could be a whole nother discussion in itself.
are we doing part 2?
Sounds like
We're moving right along.
So, for the sake of time, we do have to move on.
Okay.
Are these symptoms inclusive for men and women? Because, like you said earlier, most of the time we think about the victim as being the woman. And later this month, because I'm doing a series, and the two of you are the first of the series, so everyone can get a clear understanding of what domestic abuse is and the symptoms and the traumas, the symptoms of the trauma. And then I'm going to be interviewing, the third session is a male.
Oh, good.
He's going to be telling his story as the victim. So are these symptoms inclusive for men and women?
yeah,
Human
and
beings.
human beings.
Because of the way our brain works.
Exactly. And every person experiences it differently.
So
Yeah.
do some people experience all of them? Have you ever seen someone that experienced all of these symptoms?
In order to have the diagnosis of PTSD, you
How many
have
do you have to experience as
There
men?
are four clusters
At
of
least
that.
4.
Well, it's more technical than that. but
Okay.
Yeah.
And it has
gets-
to happen over a period of time.
Yeah, and,
Over consistency.
and it has to impact your functioning.
Yeah.
But something else with trauma, I mean, that can cause suppression. A lot of people start drinking.
Substance abuse.
Substance abuse.
That's a phase.
That's a phase. And anger. Just so many different
So many different
to
faces
that.
that comes with it.
But one person can experience trauma totally different
That's right.
than the other person, right?
So have either one of you ever counseled a male victim of domestic abuse?
I've never counseled a male victim.
Would you like to?
male.
Was that something that you would be interested in doing?
Of course, yeah. Now, what I had to do one time was lead a group for batterers. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do that. But I did it, and it was really enlightening because some of the men, they talked about how they really try not to hit. They try not to hit. And it goes back to thinking they don't have control. But she'll throw something at me, and I'll just lose it then. So I have an excuse there. So it's okay for me to hit her if she hits me. And then we try to, let them know that. No,
I've interviewed 2 male abusers, and I had to take myself out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I had to honestly talk to them before I interviewed them about my feelings and how I felt about abusers, and ask God to help me with this. And that gave me a little bit more empathy and compassion and grace towards them. Okay. So, have you ever interviewed a male victim?
I've had conversations with them, but not in sessions.
Okay.
And it's so striking. Just this week on Tuesday, I had car problems, and this gentleman, he gave me permission to use his name. He said, "Yeah, tell him that I just broke up with my girlfriend because she threw the cell phone at me and busted my lip." She said, so I had to get out of that relationship right quick. He said, "Yeah, I want others to know that this is often what happens when girlfriends provoke us as men to come and hit her." He said, "But I'm not the type of person. I'm 41-ish years old. I walked away and I said, I knew I need to get out of this relationship." But that just happened with him when I was working with him to get my car.
Wow. So the last question is going to be, and I'll let you tell everyone how to contact you, your social media platforms. The last question is going to be, what's the success story? Because I know the 2 of us, we said something about ending the cycle. How does the cycle end?
One way the cycle ends is through community, that making sure that people are aware that, going back to the abuser, that this is not a disease. This is something that they feel they're entitled to, and we have to start holding them accountable.
Education.
And education, yeah. And then for the woman, is reaching out and getting help. Because once you've gone through counseling, you've gotten, you start to feel a sense of safety and control, and then you're educated on what abuse is, then you can share that with other people in your family as well.
So how important is counseling?
I think it is very counseling, but
Is it necessary?
I don't think it's necessary though, because a lot of times what people who have experienced any type of trauma, a lot of times they just heal through community and their family, especially if they have someone very loving and nurturing in their family. Research shows that they can heal from that. But others seek to go to counseling. Some seek to go to ministers, other outlets, shelters. So there's just a variety, and thank the Lord there are so many outlets. So you want to make sure that you understand the person who's in front of you.
I was going to add to that, it's according to what I think how we define counseling. Because the word tells us, says, in the multitude of counselor there's safety. That's Proverbs from the wisdom book. So, but what type of counseling? My 30-year-old daughter said, "Mom, I want you to revise that. Put wise counsel." She said, because some of these ladies out here can give you counsel and you like, But yeah, wise counsel is the key. And to have those person who, what the scriptures even tell you about, Titus 2 woman, the older women who are women of the faith in our Christian faith, is supposed, according to the scripture, to be reaching back.
Yes.
Intergeneration, that you can go. And I believe that's what you said. When we can have those intergenerational conversation with the wise, seasoned Christian woman, sit down and say, "Sister, I love you, and you are more valuable than this."
And how about transparency?
Yes.
What about these same women being transparent?
That's
That
it.
this did happen. This too happened to me as
and
well.
you don't have to do that. I didn't have anybody to tell me.
Right.
But I can tell you that you can go a different way than I went. So you're getting the same effect as a professional therapy, but you're just getting it from a community of people who God put in place, if they will function in that way to help reach back.
Good. So, any last comments, anything else that you would like to say?
Yeah, just going back to the counseling part, I think you also want to make sure if you do try to seek counseling, you want that counselor to be trauma informed. Like they know the results of trauma, the impact of trauma, and the treatment looks differently. But the number one thing is creating safety for the person.
Safety.
That has to be number one. Safety,
Are you
physically
safe?
and
Mentally
emotionally.
and physically. Dr. McElwain.
And also, I actually picked up this flyer that I got from one of the groups called Break the Silence, and it tells responsibilities mainly in dating. We talked about what's happening that draws that perpetrator to you. So this is a good outlet. It's from Mecklenburg County Community Support Services, dealing with teen dating.
Teen dating.
And some of the things, but it's applicable to any age.
Yeah.
And it says responsibility in a dating relationship to break the silence. It says my responsibility to never harm my partner. So you're taking responsibility. In any way I am to blame, I'm taking responsibility to change. It is my responsibility to treat other people the same way that I want to be
treated. And it's so ironic.
Golden rule right there, right?
Do unto others. And it's so ironic that you said that because my last group for the month, the last series, is two teenagers, that have experienced domestic abuse in their homes. And so they're going to be talking about what they saw, their feelings, and how they're breaking the cycle. This has been good.
Yes, we can keep going.
We can. So you told us the Virtuous Place. How can the audience contact you?
Yeah, just Google the Virtuous Place, and you can go to my website, and you can see my information there and give me a call, and I would love to walk alongside with you.
She's not on social media, people, so you can't go looking for her on social media.
Me
You're going to have to
either.
Google her. Dr. McElwain, you're on Facebook.
No, but
you do your lives.
mostly my personal stuff. Not so much from my counseling.
Yes.
More my ministry stuff.
Okay, so how can the audience
but
find
I do
you?
have a Facebook if you want to go from the ministry. I usually do the first Monday of every month mental health moments for about 15 minutes and talk about different subjects. And just send me an email, Teresa, TERESA.McElwain, MCILWAIN, the number 55 @gmail.com. And if you send me one, we would definitely respond.
Or they can easier message you through Facebook.
Oh, they sure can. See, I don't think like that.
She'll let us know.
That's right. You can message me on Teresa McElwain.
Thank you. This has been so informative, and this has been a great gateway for the next series of interviews to come for the month of for the month of October. And I would like to say thank you, sister.
Thank you, sister.
And thank you, Dr. McElwain.
Which I'm a sister too.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And this is Gail, Estella. Please be sure this is the first of our series every Sunday at 7 o'clock for the month of October. Please tune in on Facebook, on my page, Gail Estella, and then it will be up on Gail Estella Speaks on YouTube. But please follow this series. It's going to be so good and so informative. Yes, and I hope everyone have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to Gail Estella's Survival Podcast.